So, like I said, today I'm going to take you through the journey that we've been on with Center Parcs to create this super cool new identity. Now, you probably recognize it mostly like this. It was founded in 1908 in Holland, and it had a really strong start to business. It really brought people into the whole new world of working with nature and making sure that you feel together with your family. Now, what happened a few years ago is that they got investment from the company that owns them, Pierre Vicomte's. So that meant that all the old parks that they had got upgraded, but also they started to create some new parks as well. So massive investment on some incredible new things that were happening at Center Parcs. But the problem is that it was still serviced by this old identity that you can see here. So the old logo, iconography that wasn't really working well, stock imagery and photography that didn't really feel that relatable, an illustration style that felt quite dated too. So in essence, they had three challenges. Firstly, the identity just felt dated. Secondly, it wasn't actually fit for purpose. It was designed for the physical parts, for print. It didn't work well on screen. It wasn't perfect for those smaller avatars that you get. But then also from a story perspective, it also didn't feel relatable. It didn't really connect authentically with the people that really needed to connect with it. So then they asked us to pitch, and we went away. We came back with one idea, one route of what that could be. They invited 6 different agencies to pitch for it as well. And luckily, we was the winner, which is absolutely fantastic. So we got onto the team, we left that pitch creative behind, and we sort of started from scratch. Now, how we work at Design Studio is through these three phases of work. We like to do an immersion, a strategy, and then into the design. So immersion is this opportunity for Design Studio to learn everything firsthand, from all the good things about Center Parcs to all the bad things about Center Parcs, what's working well for the brand and what's not working well for the brand. So that meant that we had to go away and truly understand every single thing about Center Parcs. So we visited 8 different parks around Europe, all the brand new parks that they've just recently created, the ones that they've upgraded, but also the ones that they haven't upgraded as well, looking at the super big ones to the super small ones that are located in the middle of mountains to ones which are on the coast. It gives an opportunity to understand the experiences you get there. We started to interview different stakeholders. We started to do some of our own activities to understand the different aspects that you have within Center Parcs, but also just generally to experience the park itself. So this is what we did. So it was an incredible journey to understand and learn every single thing about Center Parcs. We went away and then started to build this immersion report outlining all of our findings, all of the challenges that they face, the great things that are happening. But we could probably simplify it down into 3 key aspects. We know that they need to make some shifts into this new world. So they needed a story that wasn't just talking about the products, but actually a people-centric story that people can relate to, authentically connect with as well. There was this perception that we learned that all parks feel exactly the same. If you've done one, you've done them all. But the truth is that every single park is totally different. Each one has its own unique flavor. That locality comes in and provides its own food, its own entertainment, its own vibe and its own style. And we want you to really dial that sentiment up as well. But also we need an identity that's not just designed for the park, but something that's designed for the full 360 experience. So it's perfect in print, perfect in that physical space, but excels in that digital space as well. Which then gave us an option to move into our strategy. Now, our strategy basically is the story and the framework that we provide Center Parcs that will help unite the whole business so that they can all move in the same direction. And through our research, we actually realized that when Center Parcs was first founded, it's founded on this story of man plus nature. And we think this is actually an incredibly powerful idea. And what we really want you to do is to go back to that original radical philosophy that started Center Parcs, but give it a modern twist, a modern relevance that feels right for everyone today. So we created a story, which is this. So a whole new story for Center Parcs, not just about man plus nature, but actually when you bring those two worlds together, it creates human nature, a really powerful, yet really singular story that we can use to unite every single one of those parks. When we start to think about human, it's togetherness, it's strengthening bonds with loved ones, but it's also about forgetting the daily hustle of work. When we start to think about nature, it's this idea of feeling like you're in the wild, you're exploring these new locations, these new trails, new plants, new scenes that naturally just get you excited, makes life worth living. But when you bring those two elements together, it's about discovering your true self again. It's about connecting with nature and each other. So in essence, this became the foundation that we use, the big idea for all of the creative work that we started to do, which then takes us into the design part. This is the visual and verbal identity that brings that customer experience to life. But when we started, we had one big challenge right from the get-go. Center Parcs told us not to change the logo, give them a whole new brand toolkit, a whole new communications strategy, but do not change the logo. So we said, we need to change the logo. And so we had to convince them to actually do this first. And so we started with their logo, their strongest asset. But then to really understand how to improve the logo, we asked lots of people to actually draw it from memory. Some people drew some leaves, some people drew a bird, some people drew a sun. It was quite higgledy-piggledy. Obviously, everything centered around nature. And it's quite interesting because when you do look at the logo itself, it is two leaves, it is a bird, but it's quite hard to understand. When you look at the word mark, it's got lots of craft, lots of detail, but it feels quite dated, feels quite old. It doesn't really have that modern twist to it. But what we also know is that this logo doesn't work in those smaller spaces. If you think about avatars for Instagram or Twitter or anything like that, a favicon, this logo fails in all those spaces as well. So what we learned is that actually it can be quite forgettable. People know that it's got something to do with nature, but they're not really sure what it actually is. Most people understood it as a tree or a leaf. There was a lack of clarity across Europe. So what we do need is a memorable logo, something that is easy to understand across all of Europe. It has to work well in one color, so it can be printed, it can be used as signage, just from those functional aspects. But we, of course, we need to be flexible across those different formats, from signage to social media as well. And this little push actually really helped us because they finally agreed to choose a new logo. So we went away and started to explore lots of different ideas of what this could be. But then we presented 3 different routes of what the Center Parcs identity could be. Route one was all around these two halves, these two pieces, one side center, the other side parks. So really simple, modern, clean identity that mixes really own green, uses our two symbols to actually create a graphic pattern, and started to extend into the graphic world that you start to see here, how it can be applied across communications, to website, to mobile as well. The other route took a totally different angle. Here we really wanted to dial up that authentic storytelling, using something that felt much more traditional, that felt much more authentic, that felt much more human, making sure that we dial up every single one of those stories, but marrying it with a really digital first toolkit, this whole new response that gives you a really beautiful juxtaposition of what this world could be. And that's how they started to come to life across the whole brand experience, from apps to communications to the digital experience too. But there was one route that everyone absolutely loved, and that's what we're going to go into. First, it starts with our name, Center Parcs. We distill that down to its initials C and P. We then start to craft each character to actually form this tree. So all of a sudden we've got nature as part of our human nature story. But then what we realized what was missing is this sense of joy. Where's that humanity? And that's when we started to add that sense of joy coming as part of those two little leaves, but has that humanistic expression. So in overall, we've got this incredibly simple yet iconic logo. It's powerful. It works incredibly well at those smaller scales. But of course, it's just iconic, something that's memorable, something that you can easily draw, something that will work across all of Europe. But it's also been brought to life through motion. So it's been designed to move in every single way. Now, what's really beautiful here is we start to see the forms of the tree growing, but then you also get that tiny little seedling, which turns into those leaves. So it gives you lots of character, lots of motion, and lots of personality too. It's been designed to be flexible across any background and color. So you can see it here, how it works on photography. But we also pair it with a really refined wordmark. It's modern, it's characterful, it's authentic. But of course, it's just incredibly simple as well, but packed full of personality. And it's got all the details which are inspired by our symbol too. So all the weights are matching. They've all got these geometric forms. The R's in particular copy the leaves that you see within the symbol, these organic blooming branches. But you've also got these circular organic joints as well. That gives you just that warm, inviting feeling, something that feels modern, that feels fresh, that feels really attractive too. And what's really important for us is that it actually stands out from the crowd too, because there's so many different competitors out there, TUI, Booking.com, Eurocamp, but in Europe, there's definitely so much more, Roomport and Lando. We had to make sure that we had a very strong step away from what they are, but we started to own the equity that Center Parcs has always had. We also provided them with a centered lockup, something much more classic, but also a playful lockup as well. That just feels a little bit more fun. It has much more character, and it just feels really energizing and vibrant. It gives you all the types of feelings that we want to really associate with Center Parcs, which they didn't go with, to be fair, in the end. Which then gives us a really good idea of how to actually approach color as well. This new mark is modern and fresh, so we wanted that same approach to what we could do with color. So our colors are inspired by nature itself, whether it's the trees, the weeds, whether it's the sea and the skies. We can start to get really interesting colors that brings nature back to Center Parcs, so they don't just have to own green. So we have these darker colors which are rich with depth. They have a real sense of sophistication and have that level of gravitas that we absolutely love. But then we pair those colors with something that feels much more vibrant, something that feels much more fresh. It has a really enlightening moment towards it. It feels fun and it feels very positive. And that's the type of feeling that we really want to capture. And of course, then our symbol can work in any of those colors at any of those times. But what's really important for us is that it now becomes an accessible color palette designed for screen and made perfect for print and that physical space as well. So we have pine, which we match with grass, bark with honey, lagoon with sky, and sunset with blossom. All works independently, but of course can all work together as well. And of course, all double and triple A rated too. So this new approach to color gave us some strong inspiration of how we could actually approach typography too. We wanted to keep something simple, but something quite powerful too. So introducing Bagos. It's a really beautiful font that we use in regular and we use in medium. It's warm and it's inviting and it's full of character and personality too. We chose it because of its shared characteristics with our symbols. It has those similar organic terminals, those really beautiful circular joints, but also those flared terminals too, something that just felt naturally combined. It had those shared properties that we absolutely love. But of course, it's been designed to work across our whole layout system. So you'll start to see lots of these arches coming through the whole layout system too. So it's there also to hold our content and to frame each one of our beautiful stories, whether we use it without the graphic shape or whether it lives and is held within that graphic shape too. So powerful yet simple, but works in an incredibly cool way. Which then takes us into the world of photography. We know we wanted to move away from the previous Center Parcs world that felt staged, that felt quite corporate. And what we really wanted to do is capture these beautiful moments of joy, whether it's showing things from a different perspective, either close up into those human stories or zooming out so you can see that wider environment that Center Parcs has. It's capturing those quieter moments, those moments of reflection when you're at a park, when you see these beautiful scenery, whether it's the sky or something like the sea. But it's also celebrating the fun and capturing all the energy and vibe and excitement that you have when you're at the park, because there's so many amazing things that you could do. But it's also looking at the bigger picture and the macro details, because human nature gives us an idea that makes it feel much more multi-sensory, much more textural. So we can start to use this vernacular of nature within our whole narrative. But most importantly, it's about capturing humans in nature itself. These are the types of stories that we really wanted to build within the new identity. So we have a system which is in three tiers. We have these nature close-ups, which is beautiful, natural, but it gives you a real multi-sensory feeling. We really also have these human moments too, which puts people and their stories at the center focus, so we can capture their emotions. But we also have this layer where it's human and nature, but we bring them both together to really complete our story that we want to deliver for Center Parcs. And this naturally starts to flow into how we think about illustrations too. Before they had something quite graphic, but it felt really dated, felt quite stock, and it actually felt more like iconography. So we partnered with Fuchsia McCree to create a whole new set of illustrations, something that feels fun, that feels warm, that feels inviting, but just naturally feels good to be part of. We use illustrations in a really powerful way to help tell our stories in the most authentic way possible. So it's fun, it's playful, it's inviting, but they capture all those stories, whether you're riding in the park, you're doing an activity, or whether you're staying within your cottage. But what it really does is add warmth to all different parts of our communications, especially those things which seem to be quite functional. So whether we're calling out the family swimming pool, whether there's an error within the website, our 404, or whether we're actually building a new part of the park, we can say it's nature in progress. So instead of something that feels quite cold, all of a sudden our communications can now feel warm and inviting, but still feeling holistically part of that whole new Center Parcs identity. And what's really nice is it really helps us capture the story for human nature, because we know that Center Parcs is more than a holiday, a break, or a weekend away. A trip to Center Parcs gives us a chance to reconnect with what makes us, because we're born to explore, to discover new places, celebrate moments, create memories, learn more about ourselves and loved ones too, because human beings are happiest when they're together, and nature is Earth's greatest connector. Center Parcs, it's human nature. And that story is always used with illustration to capture all those different wonderful stories that we know Center Parcs has. It feels multi-sensory, it puts the focus back onto people, but it's fully surrounded by nature. Now, something new that we wanted to add to Center Parcs is our location badges. We spoke previously that some people felt like if you've done one park, you've done them all. But the truth is that every single park is totally different. If you're by the sea, all the activities are water related. You can go surfing, you can go gill scrambling, all those types of cool things. But if you're in a forest, then the activities again are just totally different for them. So we created these new location badges, which are used to celebrate the uniqueness of each park. And there's a few examples here. One of Parc Algarve, which is based within the mountains. We've got DixonBaxi, which is by the lake and the river. So each iconography for every single park totally changes to help represent what is actually at that park. So each place now has something that is distinct, ownable, and unique to them. So they don't just need to have Center Parcs. They can be proud of their own local stories that they have to tell, because everything that is there, from food to entertainment, is inspired by that local environment and those local communities too. And what's really nice about this is that it's also been designed to be flexible for any screen and for any format too. So these local badges can change, they can morph, they can have much more content and information. So it really starts to help with that level of storytelling that we absolutely love. We can use it to frame our stories and our people, like you can see here in Park Zandervoort in the Netherlands. We can use it to describe what makes each location special. So in this particular park, it's the northeast of France, but it's also the heart of the forest. It's one of the largest places in France to visit. But we can also highlight those moments where you can only have at that particular type of park. So you can start to see how we use those location badges as a storytelling tool to create really authentic and emotional moments in a really powerful way. Now, what's been really nice about creating those location badges is that each one has its own individual icon, which gave birth to a whole new icon system, all designed for those smaller uses. So they've got those unique characteristics, all again inspired by our symbol. So it's those organic terminals, those beautiful curves, and of course, these outline textures as well. We naturally design them quite small first, and then we scale them up to see if it works in the perfect space. So here you can see a house, a map, and of course, a disabled person as well. But we can use it across all those digital platforms, from the app to the website, to those digital kiosks that we see within the park as well. So it used to be really, really functional to provide instant clarity for all their consumers. Which then takes us on to our graphic shapes. This is something, again, totally new for what Center Parcs have done. So let me introduce them to you. We have 4 shapes, one which is a house, another a sunset, we have pebbles, and we also have water too. Now, each one shows different aspects of Center Parcs. That house is that sentiment of comfort and family. It's your cottage, that place where you're here to stay. We have our sunset, which is this feeling of renewal and discovery, where you can explore different things around the park and actually get excited about what the next day has to hold. We also have our pebbles, which is this idea of balance and connection. It's finding that perfect combination of time within nature, but also with people, connecting with your family and your loved ones. And then we have nature and growth, which is inspired by water. This really helps with our educational commitments that Center Parcs also has, making sure that they're there to unite people, to save the environment and make the best of it. And we can start to use those different shapes to help bring our system together. So it can be used to contain our tone of voice and our copy. We can use it to contain our photography and put a real focus on people and their stories. But we can also use it on top of textual photography as this really simple graphic device to hold our copy too. Beyond being used as this Holden shape, they can actually also be multiplied to form these super cool patterns, like you can see here. It can be different colors, it can be different scales, and it can be different shapes too. So we can have things which feel really playful, that have that little bit of detail as you go through the park to provide that distinctiveness, that uniqueness that you instantly know it's Center Parcs without seeing a logo. But what's really nice about it is that if we bring those shapes all together, we can start to inform our whole new layout system as well. So we can crop into it to give us these interesting layouts that feel varied, that feel fun, that feel vibrant, that have a big sense of impact. But it works for any single format, whether it's portrait, whether it's posters, and of course, that means it can work on every single touch point as well, or whether it's out of home or whether it's broadcast and it's on TV. So when we bring that whole world together, we can start to see that whole experience come to life. So if we was going out into the world with an out of home, we can be really simple and pure with our story and our approach, because every day is an adventure. We use photography that is simple and powerful, but feels incredibly emotive. And it really zooms into that level of detail. So it feels multi-sensory. And we tell you, find yourself in nature at Center Parcs. We can also start to use wheat paste that brings together the whole graphic system, whether we're using illustrations to provide that warmth, whether we're using photography so that you can feel like you're part of that story too. Because we know this is a place where you find yourself in nature, where memories are made and where nature is in progress. And for this particular example, it's Parc Eiffel, which also gave us a great opportunity to revamp the whole website too, making sure that it feels simple, but it feels powerful in terms of its imagery and its whole graphic language and its graphic device. Do what makes you feel alive. Here's where we really start to dial up that sense of green, because Center Parcs is a green brand. We make sure that booking bar is very clear at the bottom, so you can go in there, book your cottage, book your park, book your activities in the most simplest and quickest way. But once you've booked your tickets, you've booked your cottage, you arrive at Center Parcs, and this is the type of entrance signage that you could potentially see, just really simple and powerful with a bold new logo. It allows you to reappraise what that brand is, but also sets expectations for what is to come. As you go further into the park, you can start to see some of that location signage where we're really dialing up that local area. But this is where we can start to use those illustrations in an incredibly playful way. You could find them in and around the park. So they'll provide that sense of color, that sense of story of human nature, but just a bit of fun as well, especially for the families and the kids. As you start to enter the park even more, we can start to give lots more information with our signposting. Now, this is when we start to use those graphic shapes as holders of information, whether it's showcasing things like the Aqua Cafe or the Jungle Circus, whether we're just displaying the dates or the different spotlights that we can have, or whether we actually put focus on some of our visitors on the week, especially if they've got a special time that's happening at Center Parcs. As you start to go into your own cottage, that's when we can start to see those patterns really come to the surface in the little bits of the detail, whether it's big and large on a wall, or whether it's just embroidered into the cushion, like you can see on the right. But as you go outside of your own cottage, each single one can have its own picnic table. That's again when we start to use our shapes, but now in a much more 3D perspective. You've got that water droplet as the table, for the pebble, the house, that sunset shape, all as a different types of seats. It provides that pop and that level of contrast that then comes out from that natural nature and beauty that you see outside. But what's really important for us, and most people that do go to Center Parcs, is that it's really focused on family and it's focused on kids. So we created Kids Club, something that's designed specifically for them, that allows them to get involved and really understand the beauty of nature. So we started to develop some games like nature trails, where you can go around different spaces and see if you can spot a grasshopper or a dragonfly or a ladybird, and each individual park can have their own little version of these. But it starts to create this sense of interaction, this sense of play, because that's what human nature is. People are naturally curious and they want to explore. They're naturally going to touch lots of different things. But around the parks, we also want these learning pods as well. So we can start to describe and explain different types of species of animal or plants, like you can see here. So here, our role as an educator really comes to the fore. We also wanted to create some Center Parcs passports too. Now, what's really cool about this is it gives you an idea or an opportunity to visit lots of different types of parks and experience the different offers that you have. We know that Parc How&How is something in the mountains, so the experience there is so different from Kempense, where it's actually not like a mountain vibe, more of a simple landscape. So it really helps us dial up that this is not one park and they're not all the same, but they're all different and they all have their own vibes and their own flavors. But again, something that's perfect for kids to have too. Now, what was really nice for us is within Center Parcs, there's so many different experiences that you can have, whether it's things like the cycling center, you can see here, Aquamundo, the Market Dome, or the Discovery Bay as well. Then we've created our own individual totems, little logos for them, all inspired by the elements within our brand. Each one has a color set from our color theory. They all start to use bangos, but this time in a much more staggered way that feels fun, feels playful, feels inviting. But then that typography starts to hold some beautiful iconography in the middle that gives you an idea of what we can start to do. So if we're starting to go to, if you want to go to the Aquamundo, for example, we can go to that digital kiosk. You can start to see how our brand is designed for screen, designed for interaction, designed to be able to move. So you can book your ticket to the Aquamundo. You can receive your ticket, your admission, right from the digital kiosk. And then, of course, you can visit the Aquamundo itself. And that's when we start to see that signage in play, which feels fun, which feels really cool and exciting. You can go there and you can get your towels, or we can start to use our graphic patterns, or we can actually start to use our other elements to help educate people around the park, like we're saying on the left-hand side. And what feels really fun is that we can use it in all different types of places. There's lots of these chairs within the Aquamundo, and we can start to explore that story. Now, what's really nice is that there's so many powerful, iconic assets. We don't need to use the logo over and over. We've now got different elements to play with, whether it's from color to shapes, tone of voice, or photography. Now, what's been really fun with Center Parcs is that we've also been able to talk to them about what the future could actually start to look like as well. So we took that symbol and we started to expand upon it. What if it was actually used as wayfinding? And we can start to use that inside the park, but also outside the park as well. Because when you're visiting a Center Parc, you're also visiting that whole new community. It's usually a different country or a different part of the country that you live in. So there's so many different things to start to explore. But of course, it's so distinctive. It's incredibly ownable. It's something we can do in a really intelligent way. But we could also start to think about city center parks too, because not everybody can go to the country and actually visit a center parks. So what we could do is take that park and bring it to the masses. It can be brought to the city centres where there naturally isn't a park. So you still have that feeling of human nature. That idea of Center Parcs is still front of mind. And we partnered with David Padilla to create this exciting visual. But we also wanted to take it a step further. What if Center Parcs wasn't just this physical space that you have to go and visit, but what if it actually became a lifestyle brand? Because human nature is a way of being, a way of living. So we started to develop this concept of outdoor lifewear. What if Center Parcs created jackets, hats, camping equipment, tents and towels, all those types of things to really push Center Parcs into the future, so they've got something that actually puts them in front of mind every single day. So it's not just a park, it's something way beyond. So that is the new Center Parcs. Thank you so much for having me.